Hey everyone, it is Thursday and we have an extra special live for you today. We have our master wool dyer with us today. So while you're all jumping on, I'm going to go through some shop news. So get on, say hi. We do have some great prizes today. You all know that Miss Heidi is our prize patrol person. So please start commenting and we will pick winners for today's episode. If you have any wool questions, now is the time to ask them because I have not dyed wool probably in 20 some years, but we have two full-time dyers here now and we have the master with us today. And we're going to go over a bunch of things about wool, kind of from the beginning where we started and some of the issues we have. So it'll be fun to know who has dyed your wool all these years. All right, so announcements are okay. So you are invited to an open sit and stitch. So we have canceled our Bernina event that was supposed to happen in May. And we are going to put in a couple extra sit and stitches May 10th and May 11th. And it's the same $25. Come sew all day. We'll feed you lunch, hang out. So 2 days in a row. So if you want to stay overnight, that might be a great opportunity to take advantage of that 2 days of sewing and an overnight. That might be really fun. And then we also have regular sit and stitch on May 16th, June 6th, and June 27th. So mark your calendars for that. And the June 6th is a nighttime one as well. And then this is super awesome because our Sherry, who is our master quilter here as well. I say master because she wins all kinds of awards and she's a long arm. She's everything. She's doing the bag classes, but she is teaching beginners, and it is the Lucky Star quilt, and that is May 16th and May 23rd. That is 2 sessions. I'll show you the quilt in a minute after I get you all the details first. So 5 to 8. So it's an evening class, 2 sessions, 3 hours each. $50. So you know what? Even if you've been quilting for a long time, you're going to learn some things. So are you self-taught? Do you know the tricks and the tips that we have to get our quilts done efficiently and more accurate? Come and hang out for these 2 sessions. For $50, you're going to learn a lot of things that you might not know. And the fabric selection is up to you. So you get to pick what you want, and then you bring your own sewing machine, quilting tools, and notions to class. So I want you to jump on and do this as a class, and at the end of 2 sessions, you're going to have a quilt. So this is Lucky Stars. It's 12 blocks, fun piecing. You get to pick out a beautiful back for it. This fabric is Sweet Fire Rose by from Sweet Fire Road. Jackie McDonald's fabric. I don't know the exact fabric line. Maybe Jessica does.
Midnight in the Garden.
Midnight in the Garden, this one is called. If you want to make it like this, maybe we have fabric. If you want to pick your own, more than welcome to do that. I believe it's like fat quarters. So maybe you have fabric at home, but I believe it's like 20 fat quarters or 12 fat quarters or something like that. Don't hold me to it though, okay? I'm guessing.
I think it depends on the size you want to make, but I know she is making up kits for it.
Yeah, so a couple different sizes you'll be able to make, but come join Sherry for that and brush up your quilting skills or bring your newbies. That's the perfect time for somebody to learn all about quilting. All right. Now, we have this really cool thing coming up June 3rd, and it's called Splurge and Purge. So we have, I think, 30 vendors, or 31 counting me, that are going to purge their stuff, their treasures from home, and they're going to bring them here. And on the 3rd, from 9 to 4, I believe, we are going to sell them. I mean, this is stuff we want to move out of our sewing rooms. This is going to be good deals. And most of us buy really good things. Maybe kits we've never made, maybe fabric, tools that maybe we don't use anymore, or we bought 2 of them. We had a cottage and now we don't have a cottage. So stuff like that. And guess what? If you want to come and stay with us, because we have 2 rooms open yet. We have 8 rooms filled, but we have 1 quad and 1 double. And guess what? You get to shop early if you stay overnight on June 2nd. So if you want to, call the gathering and reserve some of those spots. If you stay over on the 2nd, you get, let's see, shop 1 hour ahead at 8 a.m. And on Friday night, continental breakfast. Yes, so we'll feed you breakfast. And then I think lunch is included in this as well if you stay overnight for June 3rd. But don't hold me to that either. I might be reading that into it. Okay? Awesome. Let's read the next one here. Summer Sizzle. So we have some fun little 2-day or kind of like weekend things, or they might be during the week. So this special is 2-night stay, three days with special pricing at only $350 plus taxes and room fee of $381. So it includes lodging, meals for June 16th, 17th, checkout on the 18th. And then check-in is at 9:30. So you get all day sewing on Friday and then all day sewing on Saturday. And then checkout is on Sunday at 4. So you get 3 full days of stitching. So that's a lot. All right. And you get Christmas ornament patterns to make, and guests need to supply the wool for the ornaments. If you're just coming in for the guests, if you're staying overnight, you get the ornaments and the wool, and you can use scraps. And yeah, I might be doing this wrong, but there's 3 different dates: June 16th and 18th, June 30th, July 1st and 2nd, and then July 7th through the 9th. Those are the 3 days that we are doing the Summer Sizzle for 3 different weekends. Okay. And then last for announcements going on here at Primitive Gatherings is join Lori from La Di Da. Kaylee's going to grab that for us. All right. So we still have some lodging. You can be a day student or you can stay overnight. And this is great for beginners or a refresher. So you'll be highly inspired by old-time schoolgirl samplers from the years past. Lori describes her design style as whimsical and a little primitive. Come unleash your creative style with all that she teaches and everything you need to know about cross stitch. Perfect. So come and hang out with us. You deserve it. You deserve some time away. Hang out. It's so fun over there right now. We have over 20 some people. I'm kind of hanging out with them. Vegas Val is over there with all their Charlevoix people and the Vegas people, and they're coming and going, and it's just so much fun. All right. Do we have any questions before we bring on our guest? Thank you, Pat, for the wonderful ideas to do for my 25 events for my anniversary this year. I really appreciate that. There are some good ones on there. All right. On the Lucky Stars pattern, does anyone know the size of the square in the center of that star? Can't tell you, honey. All right. That would be pattern thing. That's pattern copyright. Okay. Okay. Michigan girl. I put it on the list. Perfect. I almost missed the live today. Hi, everyone. Hi, Donna. Your booth is a must when you are at shows. I can travel too. Come here. We might not be doing some shows for a while. All right. Come to Primitive Gatherings. It's more intimate. You get to know us. You get to have a tour. You get to do all these fun things while you're here. We take you to the cheese factory. We'll take you to the antique malls and stuff like that. So it's really, really, really fun. Okay. Any questions that you guys found? Or are you answering them?
None that you need to answer
right All right.
now.
We're doing good. All right, everyone. This is going to be fun. And believe me, it took me a while to talk her into this. All right. All right, everyone. I'd like to introduce our master wool dyer, Tina Hoefler. She is my sister-in-law, married to my favorite brother. And I can say that. You want to know why? Because my brother that's next to me is too close in age, so we always fought. Brad is next. He was my favorite. And my youngest brother, Mike, he ruined my social life at 14 years old. Okay? I was going into high school and my mom had a baby. So that's my excuse for him not being my favorite. No. All right. So what do you think? You're finally here.
Yep.
Okay.
And I have to say, Kaylee is amazing with all
this. Isn't this fun how she does all this? All right. So Tina has been dyeing for Primitive Gatherings for
over 21 years.
21 years. So tell them how you remember that. Because you just told me today, I'm like, I don't remember that. Because I'm like, all right, I thought you were dyeing for me longer, but I guess when I was doing this wholesale, I was doing this downstairs in my basement. So I was, making the quilts and doing all the stuff and doing the dyeing and doing all that. But I knew I couldn't do it all. So what happened?
So I dislocated and broke every bone in my ankle. So I was laid up for a while. So that's when you started getting, I actually did your business cards, your backyard quilts.
Mhm.
And then I started doing mailing lists for you. But then you started dabbling in the wool. So then I went over and you taught me in your basement. You had 13 colors.
13 colors.
And then you left for one of your shows on your own.
Okay.
And you told me just to play and practice, do some gradations. When you came back, I had all these pastels. And she's like, wait, I'm primitive. But that's how our pastels got born. And we are now up to 245 colors.
245 colors of wool.
Yes.
That is so awesome. So show them our swatch chart progression.
So
is it time for that in your program?
After you were doing it in your basement, then instead of me running to your house all the time, then Brad put something in my basement. So, and Brandon, that was when Brandon moved down and made his Club Huff underground. And now we had to put a curtain up because then I started dyeing wool down there.
Okay. Oh,
but
no,
then
I
the
remember.
kids, this is then our first, well, then after that, we went to our first market in Houston. That's where we introduced
Oh, yes.
all the
And
wool.
do you remember we stayed really far away because we couldn't afford a hotel?
Yeah.
Close. We couldn't afford to stay right next door. We were just, and I remember shipping all those boxes. And then we had that's kind of car that looked like a station wagon, a hearse. And we were like shoving all the boxes in there. And
we had to leave like 5 a.m. to try and beat the traffic to try to get to the convention center. And then we had to try and haul it all in ourselves. Yeah. And set up our own booth. Yeah.
Good thing we did good. And we kind of advanced a little bit, and then we could stay at the hotel.
And I'll never forget, you're like, no, it was really good.
Yeah, we did a really good show.
That's when wool was starting to get introduced, and you're like, well, maybe I have a lot going on. Maybe you should just do the wool. I go, no, I'm not.
I'm like,
so that's how it kind of like started. So then we came up with more colors.
Mm-hmm.
So then my kids all in our basement with this little
this is so cool to see this progression
where they tried to staple them on kind of nice, but this was just a sample thing just to show people that we started with. Then we went to an upscale one, so it got a little bit bigger. And like I said, then we kept adding more and more colors. So
so these swatch charts are what we dyed. We actually matched the Valdani thread that went with the color wool. So we try to do that. And we sold these wholesale and retail to people who wanted this so they could plan their projects, or shops could plan their kits for anything they wanted to kit, using our wool. We didn't care if it was our kit or not. Like, they could kit anybody's project if they had this. So we sold to all the shops, wholesale and stuff like that.
Yeah. So then we upgraded to this one.
I think we updated to the binder when Moda started carrying our wools, right?
Yep.
This was a Moda thing because all the Moda salesmen have this too. And when they go into shops, they can show this to all of the shop owners, and the shop owners can then purchase this for themselves. And how many different ones are in there? Is that the 285?
No, we're at 245.
245.
No, sorry. Because then we ended up dyeing. Remember that whole basic collection that Kelly put together?
Yep.
So then you started picking out of there the colors that you wanted. And then now
that we didn't have anything like. Yeah.
And now trying to do a newer one because my sister Terry is the graphic designer.
So okay, there's kind of some family stuff going on here, right? So just a quick little genealogy chart.
So pretty much I've known Lisa for 36 years.
Right. Well, I remember so Tina and Brad were high school sweethearts, right?
Just turned 14.
Yeah, Brad was 14 when he started dating Tina, and he would steal my car and go to Tina's
and not have his license.
Volleyball games.
And then your mom busted him.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So we have some good stories. And then you would babysit my kids.
Yep.
Yeah. So we go back. So we're like sisters. I didn't have any sisters growing up, so Tina was my sister. So, and a lot of times in the booths, they thought Tina was me because Tina was always in the booth with Nick, and I was out shopping for the shop. So everybody thought I was her. So.
Yeah. So then now we're at, it doesn't even fit in one of these big binders, but now we're trying to
Do bigger swatches.
So Terry, get
Oh,
your
yeah.
projects.
I forgot my tangent there. Okay.
So yeah, so Terry is my sister that is your graphic designer. So when she gets your project, she's got to figure out what color. So I'm like, I'll make it bigger so that you can see the color easier. But we have so many that
But Terry doesn't like the organization of this.
No, because look
binder.
at there's 2 books. So we
Yeah.
got to figure this out yet.
But it'd be cool if they were like all on a wall in her office or something.
Yeah.
All
So
right. Okay.
but yeah, so going back to the markets, yeah, we when we started introducing the wool, I don't know if you want to like
We
bring
had
up
some
this.
pretty cool looking booths too back then.
We even won.
Yeah, we won best booth. Yeah. We were first loser. Weren't we second place? Or did we win?
No, we won. That was the time that we actually won. Because it was Kansas City.
Oh,
And that's when Brad went
We
with
won
us.
best double or something like that.
We
or
did
something like
double
that,
booth. That was
Okay.
the first time we did a double
Yeah.
booth.
And that's a retail booth. That's not our wholesale booth, but yeah. We had some really good looking booths at market some in the beginning because like when you I don't want to say you don't care after a while, but when you were trying to impress people with our beautiful wools and how awesome they were, we really,
Well, that was the time you brought the bed in and everything.
yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. The bed and the
We thought we'd try to like, stage it like everyone else did. So,
yeah.
but that's when Brad came. And remember, we were at the Union Station a little too long.
Yeah.
And here we got there kind of late, and here they're waiting for us because we won the booth to take a picture. So yeah.
Yeah. So needless to say, we sometimes, when you work so hard to get ready to go to these markets, it's really nice when you have some parties to go to, and the manufacturers always throw some good parties. So Moda is the best at throwing the party, and they threw one at Union Station, and it's always themed. Okay, so this was I think like Pink Lady Night or
What was
something.
50s or wasn't it the
50s night or something like that. So, we were the Pink Ladies. So that's Tina and Jess and me with my dark hair, and Nick there. I don't know what those lips are all about. He looks like Greaser Nick there. But yeah, so we would try to have a lot of fun. There's Nick as he was supposed. This was like Redneck Prom or something like that, or wasn't it? All right, so. Nick he looked like Dog the Bounty Hunter.
Yeah, that's what he's going for.
Yeah. And it was kind of cute because some of the shop owners that came were like Mennonite, and they like were waiting in line to get a picture with Nick. Remember that?
Yeah.
Yeah, like all the Mennonite ladies wanted to get their picture taken with Nick. It was so cute. And yeah, it was so fun. So we try to have a lot of fun after like the whole stress of getting ready for market and all the samples made and all the, so Moda throws the best parties, and they take care of their shop owners. They treat them like queens and kings and throw this big meal and all this entertainment year after year after year. And that's what we really miss, because we had a lot of fun at those parties.
Yeah.
They'd bring the bull in on Western ones. And oh yeah, we can't show you any more pictures than that. But that's just a little peek of what we've been through together all these years, and we had a lot of fun, and we kind of miss it, but we kind of don't. But
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
It's nice to see all the cities and stuff. But.
Yeah, we had a lot of fun. We explore. We go to baseball games, and
Yeah.
big boat rides on the like in Pittsburgh. We go on those big boat rides on the rivers, on the Ohio River or whatever those were. Yeah.
Yeah. And whenever Nick came, then we had to go to a baseball
Yeah,
game.
if Nick was along, we had to do baseball. Or that'd be the first thing. Like as soon as the schedule came out, he'd be look to see what night baseball was. So
And you could tell like later on in the years when Nick would come, then me and you would get a blowout and a massage while Nick had to put the booth together.
well, we got to get ready, because when you're getting ready for one of these shows, you look like crap. All right, there is no time to like make sure your hair is all done, your nails are done, for when the opening day of the show comes. So we would like treat ourselves. Once we made it to the show, we'd go to the spa, get our hair done, and get a massage because we were all worn out, and then we were ready to sell and do our stuff. So because sometimes in Houston we were there for 2 full weeks.
You were. I went home.
Yeah, you got to go home
I did
after
the
a while.
wholesale and then.
Mhm.
You did it once with us though.
Yep.
Yeah.
Never again.
Once, one and done.
Yeah, she's like, I'm never doing that retail stuff again.
Well, I always had to go home and get all the orders going then.
Yes, that was her excuse. Yeah. All right. So
Okay.
what did you bring us today to talk about? Because
that was one of our things at market and stuff when we first started with the wool.
Because Tina never stitched before, right? You started dyeing wool before you did any stitching,
Yeah,
right?
do you remember?
No.
I used to hot glue my stuff.
Yeah.
My hems, I hot glued it. Yeah.
But now she is a quilter. Now she does wool applique. So tell us about some of the things you've done.
Well, this was one of, like, I just wanted to bring this up. Do you remember? This was a popular, and this is what they would use as felt. So when we did it with our wool, this is what changed
the look. Yeah.
So what we tried to tell people, I mean, felt is good, but when you go from this to this, it just makes it more vibrant and alive. And I think that's why a lot of people started going with the wool. The
hand-dyed wools. Yeah. Yeah. And this might be wool, but it was probably very solid and very, it could have been a wool felt blend, right? Because there's lots of different things on the market. But when you have this hand-dyed look to your project, it really adds another dimension and it really elevates the realness of what we're doing.
Yeah, so just bringing back, this is one of our popular ones.
So this is Tina. She made this. She fell in love with this design. And this design was so popular for us. We bought so many patterns from this company that they actually just sold us the rights to this pattern. And now we market it under Primitive Gatherings now. I don't think they're in business anymore. Nope. But they were just so cool about it. They're like, hey, why don't you guys take this? Because we don't sell it, but you do. So they were super cool about that. But this is one of Tina's work in real life.
And then even after that,
all right,
I then did my own pattern.
Yes. So this is one of Tina's patterns that she designed.
It was a way long time ago in the beginning.
Yeah. So it is 2006. Isn't it cute? So she designed all of those. So just goes to show you, once you get hooked, you could do lots of things, but you've been dyeing lots of wool.
Yeah.
I get to do the pattern designing. She gets to just play with the wool and make new colors.
And then that's what is our problem now.
Yes.
So I know a lot of people have been asking, like, why is the color changed? Or, why is the wool different? Well, we have been having a problem with our colors changing to a fact that here is what our simple color lavender looked like. Now they sent us dye, and this is what it looks like.
So totally different.
Granted, it's beautiful, but here's me trying to do all different shades to try and get this lavender
trying to get back to what the dye used to look like for us.
But I mean, they're trying to say that it didn't change. How did this not change?
Right. We didn't do anything to it.
Lisa made a beautiful, like, this is going to be a new color now because Lisa made in the next
This
block.
is in, some of you will recognize this. This was kind of like the daisy flowers in our wool subscription block number 2. Tina gives me this piece of wool. She says, hey, you need to use this because
they bought a few jugs.
We bought a ton of it. So I'm like, oh yeah, I can use that. That's a beautiful piece of wool.
So that's just a, so now I have to sit there and work.
Tina's going through all of these different wools to finally get something close to it so we can put it back on our chart. So we have something coming up later on next week for you guys to purchase some of her renegades.
So here's another example. So here is our Aqua, which we use in a few of our bundles and charms. So this is what the Aqua dye is.
So you can kind of see how dark it is. And then
now, does that look like the same color? Which now, this is what Aqua looks like.
And to tell you the truth, this Aqua in person is beautiful. Like, you're going to see this because I'm going to use this color. It is so beautiful. So sometimes it's cool, but we really have 2 different colors here. So she's got to try to figure out how to get something that looks like this. But I said, why don't you just ditch this? And hey, because here's the deal. Wool is hand dyed. And even though you can't really ever reproduce it perfectly because sometimes your water changes. how much chlorine is in the water, how much is not. Like we used to have city water at the old place. Now we're all on well water, and you're on well water too. So maybe it's a little bit more consistent.
But there's also, like I said, not only do we deal with they're changing the color of the dye, but then the wool comes. Right. Sometimes it soaks. Sometimes it takes a while for it to soak. Even overnight, it doesn't even soak.
She's talking
sometimes
about
it's thick.
When we dye wool, we have to soak the wool preferably overnight, and it absorbs all the water, and then it dyes better. So what she's saying is some of the wool is coming in even different. And
so we've been ordering from the same mills for 20 some years. But sometimes it comes thick. Sometimes
so we're at the mercy of the dye manufacturer, the wool producer, and then our own variables sometimes between winter and summer and stuff like that. So wool dyeing is not an exact science. We can't perfectly replicate every color every time. And guess what? It's okay, right? It's okay. I mean, if you want to make sure, like if you're doing something big and you need lots of tongues, buy enough wool. Make sure you buy it all at the same time, because if you have to go back and buy wool again at a different time, 6 months later or a year later, it might be a little different. And I'm sure some of you have seen some of that in the hand dyeing of Valdani too, because you might have an old ball and then you get a new ball and they don't quite match. So hand dyeing, no matter what it is, whether what it's on, is not an exact science. And that's part of the reason why manufacturers can't do what we do. So if this was easy, we dye 1 yard at a time. It's labor intensive, and big manufacturers aren't going to hand dye one at a time. That's why us little businesses can stay afloat, because we do it by hand 1 yard at a time.
Let's bring up the next one. So as I was trying to make that new swatch book, 3 colors changed already. So now I got to redo it all again. So it's like I got to
keep those 3 colors.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, I don't know how long it'll take to actually get it done. But
you can't see this because I'm looking at my screen right now, and it doesn't look as pretty as it is in real life. But it's
more like a
gorgeous.
Muted, this is
it's muted. It's like primitive. It's like primitive aqua, right? But I can see this as a background on like wool on wool.
So then here's another, like our chocolate changed. So here is what the chocolate was. Now chocolate, we use that, but then these are primitive colors. So now you're messing with 3 different colors.
Right. So this is 3 different dye applications, or this is 2 different colors, right?
Yep. I just doubled it.
Okay.
So we have a lighter and a darker.
Okay.
But I mean, this color now changed 3.
Changed 3 different.
So now, if you have a color that changed, like
a dye that changes.
Yes, a dye that changes, then all of a sudden the recipe for other ones,
right? Because
we'll mess that
up. When we do recipes for dyes, it's not just coming right out of the packet. It's like a quarter of this, like an eighth of this, a half of this. So if that half yard of that one dye that has changed, it's messing up a bunch of our formulas for everything that it's in. So
Kaylee shows there the different. So here's me trying to find a chocolate, getting all different kinds of dyes. So now Lisa has a bunch of renegades to deal with.
But we're going to have a renegade sale next week, because Tina's been working really hard trying to figure out what is the exact measurements of some of these dyes to get these to look more like what it was originally.
So that's that with the dye changing. Now you have, I know people had called in also, like here's our mulberry. And no matter what, that water is boiling and it'll just have dots all over.
See those little red dots? That is what we were told is undissolved dye. And they're like, oh, well, maybe your water isn't boiling enough. And Tina's like,
it's
my
boiling.
Water's boiling. This isn't our first, we've been doing it for 20 years. But for some reason, we can't get that not to come out.
We just decided we're going to do a different color. So this is going to be the closest to our mulberry now. But this has happened with flamingo. And then now here, look at this.
And I like it. I think it adds interest to your flower or whatever you're making. I don't mind that at all. And I've used them.
So here's our turquoise. This is what it comes out to be now. So once again, I mean, you can't get rid of that. So now our turquoise is going to be a different color too. So this is what we're just going to deal with.
Yeah, it is what it is. We're doing the best we can. So if you notice some of those little dye spots, and we can't get rid of them. It's not like it was like when you build a car on Monday or Friday. It's not like that. We weren't in a hurry. We just can't get around it. So Tina pivots and does something else to make it look good. All right. Yep. But tell them about your new dye studio, because you were in your basement.
Yes.
At first.
So we went for my basement, and then I started renting a shop. And then after I realized how much we were paying at our house and how much I'm paying for rent at a shop with all those utility bills, we built a house, and now I get to do it right. We built a whole shop for me. So now I do it right at my house.
On the back side of their garage, Tina has a whole dye kitchen, so she can work from home and, do her daily things and work at the same time. So it works good for her.
Yep. So if you don't see me here, that's why.
Yes, Tina is not here. I always
behind the scenes.
When I give the tour, I'm like, we have 2 full-time dyers. Tina works at her house. She's the original dyer, and then Tyler is here as well. And it's so fun because Tyler does all this crazy stuff that, and then Tina does her things, and she's got to be the one to do all the hard experimenting.
Well, Tyler does like a lot of the textures. Like he's mostly the texture guy.
So let's talk about textures.
Sure.
All right. So all of these colors that Tina does, so this is natural, right? And this is like a base for our brighter colors. Yep. So we would not dye this on this to start with. This is dyed on
tan.
So we start with a tan base to do browns and oranges and stuff like that. And then to do darker blues and darker greens, we might start with a gray base. And then the brighter, more clearer colors, we'll start with the natural base. And I say natural because there is no white wool. If you get a piece of white wool, there's something wrong, because sheep are not white. Okay? Sheep are natural. So it should be natural. Don't call up and find out what, to get white wool. There is no white wool. And if you bleach this, I wouldn't trust the fibers. You know what I mean? So they will break down. But when you cut this up and you put it on something, it's going to look white. It's not going to look natural. And you put it on, it looks pretty white, I think. I used to have to spray them down. And then if you get one that has mottled gray or like a little bit of brown on it, that's not the brown bleeding into the natural. That's Tina's hand dyeing. Yeah. Can you find
the dirty and the ecru?
We got something called dirty snowman, right? And this is not the gray wool bleeding into the white wool. All right. This is done
This is Lisa
on
not liking white.
Yeah, this is me not liking white, plain white wool. All right. So those are some of the things that we do. Where's the right light here? And it's uneven and it's cool. And this is what we do. This is me, Oh yeah, Lisa's been here. All right. So those are the bases that we dye the clear, like the mottled or the over dyed, like the heathers. So we have I would call it like an oatmeal base, but then we also have textures like herringbones or plaids that we over dye. And Tyler does a lot of these over dyeing of these products. All right. So you'll see this with chocolate on, you'll see this with red, and, we have all kinds of houndstooth and herringbones. So yeah. So here we go. Yeah. Here we go. So here, this is a herringbone. All right. So this
is taken how?
Yeah. This green isn't like the best color for us to show on TV, but Kaylee will come in here and get a little closer. And so you can kind of see. So the mottled one, Tina, move the mottled one. So you can see the solid is really mottled, hand dyed. All right. And then we have these are our basic textures that any quilt shop can buy from Moda. We always have a houndstooth, a herringbone, and a plaid. So those, and then they're on how many colors do you think these are on for Moda, that Moda sells for us?
Oh,
maybe 40.
It's probably 40, and then you have your primitives that it's on.
Yeah, 40, and then a set of primitives, which is done on the oatmeal solids. Awesome. Okay.
And then we can go into what all the difference.
Yeah. So one of the things that Tina's really good at is playing around. So I want her to show off her little leaf dyes. So this is one of our prizes today, right? So she does these very painstakingly with a bunch of different colors, and she's throwing a bunch of mottled colors. And these are what we call our leaf dyes. So we have yellow leaf, orange leaf,
Green leaf.
green leaf. We have a new one called pink leaf that I just use in a poinsettia.
Well, that's the pink leaf and the geranium.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
So those are like a specialty. They take a little bit more time, a little bit more product, but see how beautiful those are? So Tina dyes all of those for us. And we have so many different ways of selling the wool. These are our 3 prizes for it. So we have bundles of all 3 different sizes. We have pre-cut pennies. So we're going to give away some pre-cut pennies. We have a bundle. These are our 3 prizes for today. So get those comments in. All right. So here we go. Again, these would be over dyed.
This is our large bundle.
Yeah. Large bundle, medium bundle, and then small bundle. So those are like all the different sizes. Textures. All right, let me just sort these out. These are our prizes. Let's put our prizes over there. That one. Okay. And then you can see like the bigger bundles. And then we also have charm packs. So whether you're primitive or bright, we have Tina's pastels that she made while I was at market. And we have brights, chartreuse, really, really bright ones. We have pastel.
So this is the pastel too. So that is our aqua. And here's our lavender.
Yeah. So she needs to figure out how to make those again. And then we have packs of 10 different textures, right? 8 or 10, right? 10.
There's 10.
Yeah.
Charms,
So there's 10 different textures of red or pink or anything that we dye. So, and what's great about wool is most of the time we only need little bitty pieces. We don't need huge pieces. All right.
Yeah, like that leaf one is good for leaves for in the fall.
Yeah, for, around the pumpkins, all that kind of stuff. And we have circles, pennies, we call them pennies, in so many different sizes too, if you don't know that. But yeah, this whole bin there is so full of all the things that we create. All right, let's take a drink. All right, throw me some questions. Hopefully they have some.
All right. So can you explain what over dyed means?
Okay. So over dyeing is when you're over dyeing on a texture. So when we see these plaids, we're going to over dye them with a color and make them, where's my light? Make them another color. So that is what over dyeing is. And when you over dye, you want this to be even. You don't want it to be modeled like a hand dyed is. You don't want different models on that plaid. Or at least I don't. Great question.
Tina, how much wool do you think you dye in a month's time?
Well, I try to do 30 a week or 30 a day, so 150 weeks, so 600.
600 yards in a month.
At least, yep.
Keep buying Tina's wool.
Well, just like your last thing was your home for the holidays.
Mm-hmm.
That alone, I had to dye over 150 for that. So,
yeah. So what she's talking about is our wool subscription box. So we have that offered every other month. And Tina dyes, we have 1,500 people in that wool subscription box. Actually, we only have 1,400 and some. We have a few spots left. Please sign up for our wool box so we can do 1,500 and out the door and we don't have any leftovers. But I still got to hustle. And so every time I do a tour through here, I get somebody to sign up for it. I show them all what they get and how huge of a discount they get on this subscription box. And then they ended up buying the back ones and signing up. So they are super fun. But that's what over dyeing is, and that's what the subscription boxes are for, and that's how many you dye, a lot. And remember, that's just Tina. That's not what's dyed here at Primitive Gatherings as well.
All right. From start to end, how long does it take to dye a piece of wool?
All right. So can you hear her? All right. So the question was, from start to finish, how long does it take you to dye 1 yard of wool?
well, you have to soak it.
Mhm.
Then you have to wait for your water to boil.
Mhm.
And then you put it in and you have to have it at least an hour.
So it's in the
And
dye
then you
pot an
have to
hour.
Dry it. So, and they're
Yeah.
all felted. And
Yeah.
everything
So
is,
yeah, all of our wools are felted in the dyeing process because we're boiling them. So that's when felting is when all the fibers shrink up. So when we get a piece of wool, it is like for clothing, right? It is like, and what we do to use in our wool applique is we shrink up those fibers, close up all the holes in the weave of it. So when we cut it out, it doesn't ravel. Now, some wools will be a little bit more fringy than others, and some things shrink up more than others. So that's just all part of the pattern or the weave of the wool. What you got there? The red?
It's hard to see the green.
Hard to see the green. Okay, perfect. So he has bought us the red. So see the red textures? Here, you hold on.
so that's, over dyeing on these textures.
So these
now.
are
This is
all over
Christmas.
dyeing on the red. This is our beautiful Christmas colored wool. And see what a good job they do getting that dye even. Here, up in the light. There we go.
Turn yours towards the window, Tina.
There you go.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Thanks, Nick. Did you like that picture we showed of you?
Tina Louise.
Do you want?
Nicholas
They could
Cage.
tell you some stories about the.
Do you have the Elvis one, Kaylee?
No.
I have.
We are not bringing Elvis back out.
Hey, I have a picture of Nick in his Elvis suit.
So do I.
I gave it to Kaylee.
Maybe I could find it.
How about no?
Let's see, what could we do to bribe them to come on to, and I'll show if we get so many people or whatever, we'll bribe them with Nick's Elvis picture in his. Okay, you got to understand though, there's a story behind that Elvis suit. So my husband orders a $1,000 Elvis suit to wear to
Your
your-
42nd birthday.
Yeah, it
To
was
wear
your
to-
birthday party that he said a star was coming to your birthday.
yeah. Don't show him it, Kaylee.
Don't show them.
Don't show him Elvis. We gotta like bribe him with something good. Yeah. No,
There's
no.
one of our booths.
Yeah, those are her pictures. But anyway, I'm glad I thought of that. But Nick bought an authentic Elvis suit, not that cheap one, you know. This is a really nice one. Hey, you could probably fit into it. Do you think?
It was white.
No, it's black.
Black.
Is it black?
It's black.
It's
Black.
Yeah.
full of
Oh,
Full of
yeah.
rhinestones.
I have it on my phone.
I'll think of something really
a
cool.
close up of it.
I'll think of something really cool. Maybe I'll make them try it on. I know
Thank
right where it
goodness
is.
there's no video of the performance.
Yeah. No, that performance. So Nick, for my 42nd
42nd.
because I didn't have a 40th birthday because I don't really like surprises. So they surprised me with a 42nd birthday party, and Nick was the entertainment, dressed as Elvis, and he lip synced songs to me
5
because
songs.
I've been a big Elvis fan. And when I was like 10 years old, Elvis was in Green Bay, and my mom told me that I was too young to see Elvis, and there would be plenty of opportunity for me to see Elvis in 1977.
And 2 months later. he
And
died.
2 months later, we lost him. So I am still a little bitter about that as well.
I took care of it though.
Just a little.
Yeah.
Not much.
Yeah. So, you know, you hang around with us long enough, you get to learn our little fun little stories. So,
When you were always gone, we were always gone for your birthday.
yeah.
That's why
Yeah.
you
Because
happen to
my
be home.
birthday is always
During
when we
market.
go, like I'm either on a plane or I just land in Houston the next day is my birthday on October 23rd. So, but I don't care. I mean, I've had some fun birthdays.
Oh yeah.
All right. Pop me up some questions.
All right. Tina, how many pots do you dye at a time?
How many pots of dye?
I have 4 stoves, so I have 8 of them.
Yeah, so she can dye 8 yards at a time.
All right. How does wool come? Is it the same as fabric on a bolt?
Yes, and they're about 100 yards a roll.
Yeah,
Not
so-
a bolt, a roll.
Right. The question is how does wool come?
Yep, and they're usually
So
around
how
100.
often do you order wool?
I get at least one a week
Okay,
because I do the 150. So, but I have the tan, I have the gray, I have a dirty white, I have white,
So-
I have
So Tina has her own business. She doesn't work for Primitive Gatherings, but I am her only customer.
I'm the wool barn.
Huh?
I'm the wool
She's
barn.
the wool barn. Yeah. But she only has one customer.
I was told I can only have one customer.
Yep. That's it. As long as you have one, you
That
can
was
be
in
a
the
business.
contract.
Yeah. 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 That's how I gave her all the secrets, as if I was her only customer. I saw Elvis in Atlanta. Oh, Patty. I so would love it. This is one of the best lives ever.
What?
See, you got to come on more. Like I begged her and begged her and begged her to come on and show us what she does because she's at home a lot and I only get to see her maybe once a week or, you know, when she comes into work. I mean, we do some fun stuff and ride motorcycles and do stuff like that sometimes too, but or go to Hawaii. Tina got to go to Hawaii with me. I treat my girls pretty good.
That was
Heidi's like, I didn't get to go yet.
Well, that was my 20th.
Oh.
My 20th
That-
working.
20th anniversary. I took her to Hawaii with me. All right.
All right.
Another question.
There are some questions in here I'm going to say that we cannot answer because of proprietary things.
Okay.
So I'm
yes,
not ignoring some of your
So
questions.
you may be asking some questions that are our secrets.
Ancient Chinese
Yes.
secret.
And
Yes.
you only get to work here and dye wool if you're like family somehow. All right. Or it's like the mafia. We don't let you ever leave us because you know all of our secrets. All right. And I just don't let anybody come in here and dye wool. Tyler is like one of my sons. I raised him from when he was in 6th grade, feeding that kid. He was jaking him, football, all that kind of stuff. So I consider him one of my kids. So that's why he gets to do that. And then the only other dyers we had was your niece, Whitney, who is Terry, the graphic designer's daughter. And if you don't know this as well, Kaylee is Tina's niece. Who was the daughter of Elle or Lisa, who was our office manager all these years. Besides this year, Michelle just started. Lisa has retired. And
So should we bring that back?
what?
So I have an older sister, Lisa, Terry, and me.
Yeah.
And that's all we have in my family. I go to Lisa's family, and the only sister Brad has is Lisa, and his mom is Terry. So I have a Lisa and Terry on both sides.
Yep, I'm the best Lisa. I butt dialed her the other day. She's like, "Hey, did you call me?" I'm like, I know I butt dialed you. I must, I'm like, "Hey, how's it going?"
She's actually went to Graceland for her birthday, so she was just there.
Oh, seeing my Elvis.
Yep.
Okay. All right. Questions?
So along the lines of the quilt, can you make a quilt out of wool?
Yep. All right. Can you just make a quilt out of wool? We're going to be doing a tutorial on this coming up soon. So this is a quilt with wool as the patches. All right. And it is just like any other quilt. This is a pattern in one of our previous books. It is quilted with a homespun back. You could put flannel on the back as well. And it is bound just like a normal quilt. Wool has a thickness, but it's not like super fat. It is still able to quilt with it. And I mean, one of these days, we're going to do a trunk show of some of my wool quilts. And then you can see all the things that you could be doing with wool. What is the reason do you think you don't see a lot of wool quilts nowadays? The price. Wool has always been a premier fabric. Wool is not cheap. When we buy wool, we're paying $20 a yard for it before we even over dye it.
It went up.
It went up. It's even more. All right. So see, I'm even out of the loop. I don't even know how much stuff costs anymore. So that is why wool is expensive. It is because it's already $20 or $23 or whatever it is nowadays. And then we have to do all what Tina does to it. And that's why it is not like the same price as cotton, because wool is wool. It is, like I said, a premier fabric and high-end
fabric. That's why you made it easy for people to
buy
buy it,
smaller pieces
so
and
they don't
stuff
have
like
to buy
that.
the whole yard.
Right. I have a couple all wool quilts. One of them is the crossing one. What was that one called? Tulip Crossing?
Yes.
Right. And that's about like an 80 by 80. But to kit that is like, $500 or even more nowadays. That was probably 10 years ago. So this quilt, just if you want to quick do some math, I think this is 20 fat quarters of wool. Now, I believe a fat quarter is $18.
No, it's 20.
All right. So say it's $20 for a fat quarter of wool, which a fat quarter of wool is bigger than a fat quarter of cotton. So wool is 15 by 25 as a fat quarter. Okay. And, if it's $20 and you need 20 of them, It's $400 just for the quilt top of this. So that's why you don't see a lot of quilt tops. But guess what? Our quilt's made out of wool. It's pretty awesome. We call this sleigh ride. So this is, you know, back in the old fashioned days, they would be in their buggy and they would have their wool quilt on them when they were taking their buggy ride or their sleigh ride.
Pretending we're on the buggy.
Yeah.
Whoa.
Whoa.
We actually
Hosea.
did that in Kansas.
Yes, we do lots of fun things. Yes, to
Yeah,
reward
market.
ourselves for all of our hard work until the next 6 months when we go to market. But that there's no. Right.
Yeah.
So along the lines of a wool quilt, can you quilt over a wool quilt just like you do a regular one?
Yep.
Is
Yep.
there batting inside of there?
I believe there's flannel in here. So you could put batting in here, but I believe I put a piece of flannel in here as that middle layer. Great question.
Yeah, because here's the quilting on it.
Right.
Can you wash your wool quilt?
Yes. Remember, this has all been felted already. So is it going to shrink? It might shrink a little more if you wash it in hot water and throw it in the hot dryer and try to shrink it up a little more.
But you got to be careful too, like with the reds. You still want to make sure it's
Yeah.
cold.
So one of the things about washing wool is that no matter what, no matter how color fast we get this wool, you can always make wool run by getting it hot and wet. And part of a wool dyeing technique is to take like a light, like a cream, a red, and a black, and kind of like roll them together, all together, tie them up, and then throw them in the boiling pot. And then the colors just kind of seep through, and you get that color to transfer into the other colors. And that's kind of even a dyeing technique. You probably have not done that yet, right? Yeah. But that is a technique. So you can get wool or color out of wool. You don't want to sometimes, but sometimes you do. But if you wash quilts, you just make sure you wash them in cold. That way you won't get them to run. Now, I don't know if you remember, if you're a regular on this show, Kathy Meyer, who is one of my wool goddesses, she's the one always at Sit and Stitch doing Sue Spargos, bling, 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 you know, and she's just a fanatic at getting her stitching done. She has done a lot of my wool quilts, Twilight Garden, Live a Thankful Life, and she just throws them right in the washer and the dryer. And they turn out beautiful. All right. I mean, I can have her bring some in one of these days and you can see them. And I'm like, remember, you hear me say, I don't want anybody drooling on my quilt. So I don't let some of my quilts, like, you won't put this on a bed. I mean, maybe you would, but not me. I don't want people drooling on this quilt. This is wool and this is flannel. So I designed a lot of flannels to look like wools, so I didn't have to use wool as a background. That's where the wool and needle flannels came about early on in my Moda designing career. Because wool is so expensive, I designed flannels to look like our wools so we can use those together interchangeably. And if you're allergic to wool, maybe this is not your thing, but what if you really like the look of this? You know what you can do? You can use my flannels and use them
I was just
and
looking at
fuse
that,
them.
like right there, and then here it is here.
Yeah, right? Yeah, so this piece, so here's a plaid, a stripe that we do. So a lot of these patterns that I use in my flannels come from our wools that we find. All right, Kaylee's trying to see if she can get a close-up of that. Ooh, look at her
Look at
brighten
that,
that
yeah.
up. Good job, Kaylee,
So
cameraman.
grab those. How close
Yeah.
is that now?
Yeah, so yeah, she's not. So look at, these are the wools. Look at how perfect they look. It's not so bad to come on and talk to live. It's just like talking to all your quilt buddies.
Yep.
Yep. She's like beet red. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Any more questions?
Since we don't have a kit for it anymore, where can you find the pattern for the quilt?
All right. So I knew this question was going to come up because this quilt is awesome. Did you pan back and show the whole quilt? Pan back and show them the whole quilt. So this quilt is one of my most favorite quilts because it is a reproduction of one of my antique quilts. And maybe Kaylee, after she's done, can pan over to the antique and show you it hanging on our studio wall here. All right, she's got to move something out of the way. But this is in Garden Gatherings. And I know Jessica put the Garden Gatherings book.
Flannel Gatherings.
Oh, sorry. It all runs together. Flannel Gatherings book
I was like, wait, no, I didn't.
on Live with Lisa. All right, so that book is up there. And remember, you don't have to make every quilt in the flannel book as flannel. You can use it as with your cottons as well. So there is a couple quilts in that book that have wool appliques on them. And there's some that are just flannel quilts.
All right, so
But it is a nice book.
tell
it is-
them it's not going to be pretty.
It's not going to be a pretty picture, but this is the antique of the quilt behind me on our wall above Kaylee's desk in the studio.
So another quick question was, do you starch wool then too, like you do
All right.
cotton?
That's a great question. Now, are we going to starch these wools? I'm assuming if we're going to piece with them, right? The answer is no. You don't starch wool. You won't starch wool. The wool is already shrunk and felted. So we're not using wool off of a bolt from a store that sells wool fabric. We are already using felted, hand-dyed, or over-dyed wools for our quilting projects. So there is no need to shrink it, starch it. It's not going to get stiff. We're not going to be piecing 1-inch half square triangles with this wool. All right. We're going to be cutting big pieces like this. So that's why I'm not making wool log cabins, although you could, but you wouldn't starch the wool. This is flannel, by the way. Flannel and wool mixed together, mixed media. And it's all kind of about, I want to say there's rules, but there's not rules. Okay. You can do whatever you want. If you want to piece that whole quilt in wool, you can go right ahead. All right. But if I have to make a quilt design that I have to kit, I always think about price. I always know that if I have a $500, $600, $700 kit price, you know, how many people can do that? I'd rather put some flannel in it, mix the two together, and have a $300 quilt or something like that. So I always kind of think about price point. And sometimes I'll be like, no, we need to do that on flannel because wool would be too expensive. Okay. Awesome. Let me see some of the comments now. All right. Long love log cabins. I know. I have not made a lot of log cabin quilts. I love the show. So much information I didn't know. Thanks for the education. You're welcome, Donna. Lisa, I just received your wool needle and thread book, and it's great. Very informative. Yes, we do try to give you as much information so you know what you're doing. Okay, thanks.
Do Becky's.
Hmm?
Do you see Becky's comment?
Becky. Do you press open the seams when piecing wool? Do you use a 1/4 inch? Great questions, Becky. Thank you for this. All right, when you are piecing wool, you can do 1/4 inch seam allowance. Like this has 1/4 inch seam allowances. All right. But if you're doing like applique blocks as your backgrounds or your blocks, I would use 1/2 inch seam allowances. So I have already done a couple quilts with wool that I use a 1/2 inch seam allowance, and then you press that seam allowance open so it's not like a speed bump in your quilt. So a 1/2 inch seam will lay nice and flat and you won't notice it, but a 1/4 inch seam pressed one way is a speed bump. If that makes sense. I don't know if you can wrap your head around that analogy or not, but that is why sometimes you will use a 1/2 inch seam allowance in wool.
What's your stitch length? Yes, stitch length.
What?
What is your stitch length?
Oh, I would probably use a little bit bigger stitch length if I'm working with wool, and I'd probably use a little bit thicker thread than a 50 weight Aurifil. I might use like a 40 weight Aurifil if I was stitching wool on wool, now that I think about that. Yes, thanks, Becky. Those were great questions. Good
Here's another
job.
one.
All right, discuss the difference between felted wool versus wool felt. People get confused on this. Yes. All right, so I have to admit that I might call felt or felted wool the F word. Not, I mean, I say don't say that F word around me, which is felt, not the other one. All right, so in our wool world, felt is a dirty word, okay? Because I don't want to use felt on my projects. I want to use these high-end, beautiful wools so my quilts will last and look beautiful forever. Like, look at Tina's hand-dyed wool on that geranium.
Yeah.
You're not going to get that with felt.
Example.
So that's why we love
If they just got
felted. We love hand-dyed wools. Now, what's the difference between wool that we get in and felt? So sometimes we get wool from the mill, like black, right? We felt it. So what do you got to do to felt wool? You want to do everything that you don't want to do to your wool sweater. All right. And my husband knows this because he's done it to my Liz Claiborne twin set of, when they had the cute little wool sweater and the wool cardigan. And remember when he was looking for that Liz Claiborne outlet because he washed my wool sweater and it was like this big. All right. So to felt wool, like let's say, and we do sometimes have mill dyed wools and we get them right from the company and we have to felt them before we can use them. So what we're doing is we are throwing them into a hot washing machine. So we're washing it on hot and then we're rinsing it in cold because we want to shock the fibers. We want it to go from extremely hot to extremely cold. And that you do that hot cold rinse and then you throw it back into the hot dryer and shock it again. And it just really tightens up those fibers. So that is what felted wool is. So that's what we do. That's what happens when we are hand dyeing our wools. It's getting felted in the process. And then mill dyed wools, we will do that in the washing machine. We will felt them, or you could throw it in a pot of water if you're at home and felt all your wool there in a pot of water, rinse it cold, and then throw it in the dryer. And then felt is not wool, or there's some wool felt blends. So you kind of ask questions when you come across something that you maybe not know what it is. Is this wool? Is this hand dyed? Is it mill dyed? Is it over dyed? Is this wool felt? What is this? Because different places carry different things. I don't carry any wool felt blends. I want the best stuff. I want my quilts to be the best they can be. Now, is there a spot or a use for felted wool? Yes. Kids stuff or, any of that kind of stuff. There's always a use for it. Or I used to tell this story too, and I haven't told this story for a long time. All right. Let's say so you accidentally buy some wool felt. All right. That's what you make for your mother-in-law because she ain't going to like it anyways. And it ain't ever going to be good enough. All right. So make that for your mother-in-law because she ain't going to care anyway. She ain't going to use it. She's going to put it somewhere. She ain't going to bring it out at Christmas time. And I say that funny because, my mother-in-law, she did love me. Okay. I'm not just, but sometimes you get that person or whatever. And it's just funny to say your mother-in-law because, sometimes people don't like their mother-in-law. But anyway, or you make that for your church bazaar because people aren't going to pay what that is worth, right? Some people, they don't know what's all involved in our quilts. They don't quite understand that our quilt is more than $100. And it's just the nature of the game. And that's why we give our stuff away instead of trying to sell it. It's much easier to give something away than it is to take less for what it's really valued at. Okay, great question, though.
I saw one. I think her name was Donna.
What did Donna say?
What is your favorite colors to work with? I think it was.
All right, so let's talk about that. What is my favorite colors?
Right there. Was that it?
It's up pretty far.
What is each of your all-time favorite color wool? I got my new favorite one is this one right here.
And
the
then
new one Tina just did.
show that chocolate that you want to work with
Right.
on top of there.
Can you throw that at me, Jess? So then she's playing around with her colors. Look at this one. It's like sable brown. It's just like got this really cool hue to it. And look at how like these two new colors are amazing. I absolutely love them. This looks like really dark taupe. It's showing a little bit darker online than what I look at it, but after a while, when you've done things for 25, 30 years like I have, you just work with all colors after a while. I kind of do like a neutral project, and then I'll go to a multicolored project, and I kind of just switch off.
I have to say, your new one, that one that's in the wool box with all the bright colors,
Fresh cut garden.
that's fun dyeing, at least.
Right.
All
You
different
get
colors
variety.
instead of the same old
I am going to
dirty
try.
and your
All
ecru
right,
and
help me with this. I'm going to try to use every color wool we have.
I
in
know
my
it.
book.
That'd be awesome.
Right? You'll have every color Primitive Gatherings makes, besides the whitest ones probably, because they're not going to go look on that background. But some of you are putting them on dark. So, but it's just after you've been doing this as long as I have, you just want to do a bunch of things, and you don't really. Even if you have a signature style, sometimes it's fun to play around in a different color or two.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
I have one more question.
Yes.
What about working with wool shirts and skirts and
Oh, okay.
repurposing?
That's a great question. Did anybody ask that, or did you?
Yeah, there's a couple people.
All right. So what Jess's question was about reclaiming wool garments, and that is great. And I can't do that, however, because we have to replicate what we do. But if you're a forager and you love like the hunt, go to the thrift stores, go to the Goodwills, find those big articles, the skirts, the men's jackets that are made out of wool. And what I suggest to do is to cut apart them, deconstruct them. Don't be trying to felt all those plackets and all those. I'm not a garment source, so I don't know all the terms, but you know, the belt loops and all that kind of stuff. Get rid of all that stuff. Only dye and felt the big pieces. You know, cut the pant legs open, cut the biggest pieces that you can. And sometimes you don't, you know, you can dye. There's so many different ways to find out how to dye stuff or how to reclaim them and use them. Sometimes you just have to felt them. Like I told you, like putting them in the washer on hot, cold rinse, and then dry or hot again. And then you can use those wools as pennies, as appliques, as anything. All right. I do want to point out though, that when you buy wools from us, our fabric that we start with is moth proof. The stuff that you're reclaiming that's been used as clothing, you got to kind of be a little careful with. All right. Especially if, you know, it's been used as, you know, like collar, you know, like when you see moths destroy something, it's usually where it touches your skin. So it's on the cuffs, it's on their collars and stuff like that. And that's where you'll see the moths are attracted to, or the bugs. That's where they're eating that, because it's really about the oils that they're attracted to, and that's where they're eating. How is wool moth proof? I don't know, but they tell us it is. I gotta believe it, right? He tells me it is. Tina's leaf dyes are my favorite. They are beautiful. They are very beautiful. I try to only thrift store Pennington wools 100%. Yep, good job. There's nothing wrong with doing some of those. Nothing wrong with that. We just don't have the time to go looking or whatever, and we have to reproduce. So we leave those treasures for you to find. Can you dye wool or cotton in a front load washer? Is there enough water to do that? So we don't dye wool. If you mean felt wool in a front load washer, you can do it. There's enough water.
What soap do you use?
Make it hot. You need when you soak your wool, like we soak our wool, we soak it in liquid ivory soap.
Yeah.
And that helps the dye absorb better into the wool. I love the wool fabric. I love all the textures. How do they moth proof wool? I don't know. What soap? Haha. Haha. I hope that was about the mother-in-law. All right. Do not felt deconstructed wool. It will clog the filter in your machine. Ask me how I know. Yeah, I don't do a lot of it, so it has nothing to do with mine yet. All right, any more questions? If you don't, we will conclude our show with our prize winners. Here, Tina, I'll give you the prizes and we will pick the winners. I don't forget that we have a cool show for you after this on Comment Sold coming up right soon. There's no pie today, so we'll be coming on pretty much right away, 15 minutes probably, that after this show ends that we will be ready to go through Comment Sold.
And we have a salty treat.
And we have a very cool treat for you to buy. I'm not going to give it away like you just did. All right. Winners are, first winner is what?
What do you
Show me. Okay, bundle. Barb Schneider. She sounds like I picked her last week. Janelle Boxberger. You get Tina's leaf dyes. All right, Glenn Schultz, you get the pre-cut pennies. Awesome. Thanks you for joining us here today. I am so glad I finally got Tina to join me and hang out with me. And now she won't be afraid to come on again, I think. It's not so bad, is it? Nope. All right. So thank you all for hanging out with us today. We appreciate you all. Go with live on Lisa if you need to purchase anything that we've talked about here. And I'll see you in a couple minutes for Comment Sold. Bye, everyone.
Bye.